Nara, Nallar Kingla, as always. Let's get you the headlines. We're tracking this up. Rahul Gandhi raises concerns over India's manufacturing sector while visiting a BMW plant in Germany. The BJP hits out at him and says his comments are not based by facts. The Delhi government announces that from tomorrow, non-BS6 engine vehicles won't be allowed on the roads. This will hit over 1.2 lakh cars and could cause chaos. No pollution certificate, no fueling at petrol pumps for those cars. The Luthra brothers land in Goa after the Goa police gets 2-day transit remand to be grilled on that Birch nightclub fire case. Lens on trade license that was given to the Luthra brothers as well. Prime Minister Modi addresses the Ethiopian parliament, sends out the Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam message, receives standing ovation from Ethiopian parliamentarians. First up this evening, to that continuing focus on the face-off over the VBG bill moved by the government to replace the flagship MGNREGA. While sources say that the centre is planning to place the bill for passage in Lok Sabha on Thursday, Congress launched protests against the bill to replace MGNREGA. Congress leaders protested at Belagavi, where the Karnataka Assembly session is going on, and the party has taken on the centre over various aspects of the Viksit Bharat Guarantee for Rozgar and Ajivika Mission Grameen, or the VBG bill, for revamped rural job schemes. From the removal of the Mahatma Gandhi's name from the new bill to the changed realities that it brings about, there is an economic and political debate that's raging over the issue, and sharp reactions have flown in from all sides. There's a heated debate that's on over the VG bill, as it's been referred to, which aims to replace MGNREGA. Going beyond objections to the name of the bill itself, which I will focus with you in just a bit, what exactly are your concerns with the letter and spirit of this new bill? Does it go against the spirit of MGNREGA? If yes, in which specific aspects?
It entirely kills the soul and spirit of MGNREGA. When I first announced the program in the 2004-2005 budget, I quoted Dr. Manmohan Singh, and I said, the first charge on public funds is for the poor. The entire idea was guarantee livelihood security. This new bill kills all three aspects of the original objective. It kills the guarantee, it kills livelihood, it kills the security. Why do you call it a guarantee ingrained bill? There is no guarantee. It doesn't assure livelihood for the rural poor. It has no security at all at the end of the day. Therefore, this bill is totally opposed to what we originally envisaged in 2004-05 and evolved over the last 20 years.
As you make that point, sir, given the experience over the last 20 years, especially during COVID, where many experts have saw MGNREGA as a major safety net, what consequences do you fear in replacing MGNREGA with this new bill?
The consequences are, while there is massive unemployment, especially in the rural areas, and massive underemployment, what will happen is the supplemental income which a household received through MGNREGA will disappear. And incomes will be lower, poverty will increase, food consumption will reduce, And many families, which is what we found in 2004, many households will go to bed hungry and dejected.
Well, moving away from the substance for a bit, sir, one of the flashpoints is opposition to the name of the bill. This is twofold. One is removal of Mahatma Gandhi from the name, and the other is using of Hindi terms. The government's argument on the use of Hindi, and this is in several of the bills that it has introduced, is to undo the colonial hangover. Do you agree?
What is the colonial hangover? What is the colonial hangover? The Constitution of India is in English, and the Constitution of India promises that Hindi and English will be the official languages of India. There are almost 50-55% of the people of India who are not speaking Hindi or writing Hindi. What is the colonial about English? English is a shield for the non-Hindi speaking people against Hindi imposition. Therefore, I am a non-Hindi speaking person. Now, how do I locate a bill? Earlier, you had a name in English and you translated it into Hindi, or you had a name in Hindi and translated it into English. So those who know Hindi will access the bill through the Hindi title. Those who do not know Hindi will access the bill through the English title. Now, where am I? I don't know Hindi, and I can't access a bill because it's not in English. This is an affront to the non-Hindi speaking people.
And what about the removal of Mahatma Gandhi from the name of the bill? What do you make of it?
I'm writing a column this Sunday. I'm calling it the second assassination of Mahatma Gandhi. They are trying to erase the name of Mahatma Gandhi, having vilified Jawaharlal Nehru over several days and years. Now they are targeting Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi must fade from the memory of the Indian people. The children should not know about Mahatma Gandhi. People should not have the Mahatma Gandhi's name on the lips. They are trying to erase Mahatma Gandhi from the nation's memory.
You know, as you make that emphatic point, sir, my final question, and there are those who argue that MGNREGA is 2 decades old and it's time to revisit the act and tailor it to the realities of 2025. Would you concede and agree that there is a need for change or an upgrade of the existing MGNREGA at least?
I agree. As times change and as new information is available, you should make amendments here and there. But who has brought this MGNREGA scheme to the present pass? See, over the several years, although 100 days was guaranteed in the bill, the average number of days for which people got work, all India average, was about 50. But in 25-26, it has come down to 35 so far. It may rise to 50. So you have not been able to guarantee the 100 days that you promise. So the changes you should make is to increase the number of average days to 100. And then the wages have increased, of course, because we made it a policy that the wage will be indexed to inflation, and the wages have increased year after year because of inflation. But the households that complete 100 years, we promise that we will increase it to 150 days. So I have no objection to increasing it to 125 days, but you must increase it. The average must be increased to close to 100. It is only 50. And in this year, It is only 35 so far. 9 months are over. And then the allocation has declined. For example, in 2021, they allocated 1,11,500 crore. In 21-22, the allocation was reduced to 98,000 crore. And in 22-23, it was further reduced to 69,000 crore. And you are reducing the allocation, and now you're doing worse. You say, I'm responsible only for 60%, and the 40% must be funded by the states. Since most states in this country are ruled by the non-BJP, if they don't allocate the 40%, this scheme will slowly disappear from those states. Remember what Mr. Narendra Modi said in early days and after his government. He said, I will maintain MGNREGA as a monument to your failure, monument to the UPA's economic failure. He has always been opposed to the MGNREGA scheme, and he has whittled it down, and now he's pronounced a death sentence on MGNREGA.
That was P. Chidambaram there, who spoke to us a short while ago. But now to a quick check of the latest in the legal battles over the Tirupurangundram Deepam issue. On the contempt proceedings before the single judge bench of the Madras High Court, who ordered the lighting of the lamp on the hilltop, which was not followed, remember, by the state machinery leading to this entire exchange, Tamil Nadu Chief Secretary and an ADGP appeared before the single judge and submitted their arguments. While the court said that the state can't disobey its orders, citing law and order, the government contended that it had no intention to defy the court's orders and did not follow it, as it had filed an appeal. Hearing has been postponed in that case to the 9th of January. Remember, a petition challenging this contempt of court is also before the apex court. Meanwhile, in the proceedings before the two-judge bench, which is hearing the state government's appeal against the single judge's order, the original petitioners, the ones who want the lighting of the lamp at the very spot on the hilltop, which is located next to the Dargah, continued to argue their case and submitted to the court that the pillar on top of the hill was at some point of time in history the Deepatun used to light the lamp. They also argued that the lighting of the Deepam on the hilltop is an important ritual for the Hindus, and continue to argue the case before the two-judge bench. The Deepam lighting, remember, is an important ritual according to those petitioners. NDTV Sam Daniel, who's been following this case very closely, joins us live right now. Sam, give us an overview of the hearings so far and the case proceedings so far, and what do we expect on it next? When do we perhaps expect a judgment? Is there any clarity?
The hearing continued for the fourth day, Veera Raghav. So far, the temple administration, the collector, the commissioner, the police, the Hindu Religious and Endowments Board have made their arguments, and the Waqf Board as well. And today, largely, the arguments were taken over by the petitioner. And the arguments will continue tomorrow. And according to well-informed court trackers, they say that perhaps this could spill over to the month of January after the court vacation in terms of court rulings. But the temple administration, the government side altogether, argues that number one, the single judge ought not to have given this order. He cannot take give this kind of a ruling in religious affairs, and that the pillar on top of the hill next to Dargah is not the Deepatun, but perhaps used by the Samanar saints earlier who lived on the hilltops to light the regular lamps. And that the petitioner claims that the delay in terms of citing law and order is only a ploy by the administration to delay execution of the court order, and the order only establishes the temple's rights over the pillar, and this ought to be executed immediately. And the arguments at the moment stand here. And the judge also, the single judge also had the contempt proceedings heard, in which the chief secretary as well as the ADGP law and order appeared online, and they made it very clear that for a specific question with the judge why his order was not honored, not respected, not executed, they said there's no intent to defy the order, but the government has chosen to file an appeal, which is now pending before the two-judge bench. It's in this context the contempt proceedings have been adjourned to the 9th of January, but we'll have to wait and watch how the appeal with the two-judge bench will proceed, and then we'll have more clarity.
As we wait and watch for the end game in that legal battle, Sam Daniel, remember there are multiple political reactions and political realities in Tamil Nadu. Sam will stay with us, but let's just play for you a couple of reactions from the BJP's Annamalai and DMK's TKS Ilangovan. Listen in.
அவங்க தோற்கடிப்பதற்காக அவங்க வாரண்ட் அவங்களே கையெழுத்து போட்டு மக்கள் முன்பு காட்டி விட்டார்கள். 120 எம்பிக்களும் 2029 பாராளுமன்ற தேர்தலில் தோற்கடிக்கப்படுவார்கள் என்பது உறுதி. எந்த மாற்றம்? கம்முன்னு இருக்க வேண்டிய இடத்துல கம்முன்னு இருக்கணும், கும்முன்னு இருக்க வேண்டிய இடத்துல கும்முன்னு இருக்கணும். இது யார் சொல்றது? திரு விஜய் அவர்கள். அரசியல் அப்படி இருக்க முடியுமானே? கம்முன்னு இருக்க வேண்டிய இடத்துல கம்முன்னு இருப்பேன், கும்முன்னு இருக்க வேண்டிய இடத்துல கும்முன்னு இருப்பேன். திரு விஜய் அவங்ககிட்ட கேளுங்க, ஐயா கம்முன்னு இருங்க, கும்முன்னு இருங்க, பேச வேண்டிய இடத்துல பேசுங்கன்னு நீங்க விஜய்கிட்ட சொன்னாவே நல்ல அரசியல்வாதியாக வருவார். இவ்வளவு பிரச்சனை நடக்குது, இவ்வளவு சண்டைகள் நடக்குது. நான் பேசவே மாட்டேன், நான் வேடிக்கை மட்டும் பார்ப்பேன்னா உங்களை நம்பி எப்படி மக்கள் ஆட்சி பொறுப்பு கொடுப்பாங்க?
No, they want to create trouble. BJP is known for creating trouble. Somehow they feel that the people of Tamil Nadu will, all Hindus will support BJP. But all Hindus will throw BJP out because Tamil Nadu is a peaceful place in terms of religion. Everybody were behaving like friends and family members. But these people want to create trouble. For hundreds of years, the lighting was done here in this place. Why should they want to change? That is the question. And traditional practices, courts, many courts have already given many directions that traditional practices need not be changed.
Well, as that political face-off plays out, of course, BJP's Annamalai raising questions over what Vijay's stand is on the Tirupurangundram issue, and the DMK keeping its point very clear. The real big curtain raiser is for the big political event in Tamil Nadu tomorrow. Actor Vijay will return to Karur, the district where the tragic stampede put a pause on his political campaign 2 months ago. Vijay will be holding a rally with newly enforced measures to manage the crowds, and this will be his first rally in Tamil Nadu after the stampede. He did have a rally in neighboring Puducherry a few days ago, but the importance of this Karur rally is not lost on anyone. Politically and emotionally, it's a very important event both for the TVK and the election campaign in Tamil Nadu. Sam Daniel stays with us. Also joining us this evening, senior journalist R.K. Radhakrishnan and political analyst Ramaswamy Meyyappan, who followed Tamil Nadu politics very, very closely. R.K. Radhakrishnan, what's changed for Vijay from the Karur that he had to stop the rallies and his campaign from after the stampede to the Karur rally tomorrow? What would you be looking out for in his speech?
Basically, Sengotain, that's the only change. Sengotain can do a little bit of organizing, and he knows the ground. He's from the nearby Gobichettipalayam in Erode. So he definitely has connections in Karur. So I think the stampede was a result of mismanagement on the part of TVK. TVK has never accepted it. Vijay has never accepted any responsibility. The party has never accepted any responsibility. So the point now is, I mean, I look forward to Vijay saying that it was a mistake, not just on the part of the state government, but then we also have to take some responsibility. But if that is not going to happen, I don't think the people of Karur are going to look at him kindly at all. But yes, the major change is that there is somebody on the ground who knows a little bit of organization, so he'll be able to manage the show better.
Well, you're talking of Sengotain and from the very nuts and bolts point of view of the TVK's organization structure, but largely in terms of its politics, Ramaswamy Meyyappan, is the BJP still baiting Vijay, or has it conceded or concluded that it's going to be a three-way fight? Because there are mixed signals, at least coming from the BJP, though political analysts in Tamil Nadu believe it is impossible for Vijay to share the stage with front party.
So, a very good evening to Bharat Mata and to my brothers and sisters across the country. First, I think Vijay's move to going to Karur is very, very belated. 82 days after is not something that's unacceptable at all. When you're in cinema, it's a different scenario. When you're a public person and a political leader who is wanting to be in the office of the chief minister, this is not what's expected out of you. Your statement should have been loud and clear. You should have come to Karur sooner, which he has not done. And with regards to BJP's position as far as Karur and Vijay is concerned, very simple. Vijay is not an element that's welcomed in Karur, but for him to do better and for BJP to be interested in Vijay, he has to become a better leader. And no doors are closed until nomination is closed. So BJP across the country has been a great machine, and I think they will do that in Tamil Nadu as well. They will not close any doors. So they'll keep it open. They'll make it available for Vijay to be available, but Vijay will have to show himself as a better people's leader for him to be part of the grand alliance that the ADMK and the BJP are forging.
Sam Daniel, how do you see this playing out? Because one thing that a lot of observers have told me is that when will Vijay move forward from rhetoric to substance in his political speeches and his political organization? Do you believe that the substance in his political organization and the lessons from the past will be reflected tomorrow in Karur? Is that the sense you're getting?
That's the expectation, Veera Raghav. But when we speak to TVK leaders off camera, they say this is going to be Vijay's style largely, because Tamil Nadu has seen political parties like DMK and AIDMK from the days of Periyar, Annadurai, MGR, Karunanidhi. And the younger generation who are largely following Vijay, they are not into that kind of deep policy-oriented politics, but snappy, quick to understand with a less attention span, and he's largely catering to that kind of a crowd. Of course, over time they hope that this will also strike a chord with seasoned voters who may look for more specific political and ideological information. But largely they say his speeches will be very short, crisp, and trying to strike a chord with the younger voters. But over time, will Vijay change?
As you make that point, I must mention here that R.K. Radhakrishnan, you've pointed out in several occasions that one of the key examples or proof of the power of the Vijay fan following is that amongst the victims and the families of the victims of the stampede, no one has actually blamed Vijay or spoken out against him. It is purely the DMK that's hit out at Vijay in many ways, if somebody observes this very closely. Do you believe that Vijay is still got that same kind of presence that he had at that time, A, and B, in terms of allies, and that would be the most crucial question before Vijay. If the AIADMK is consolidating the different fragments of it in a sense under EPS, how is Vijay going to play the alliance game? And that would be crucially looked out for. Are there any indicators that you're going to pick up from Karur tomorrow on this?
Yeah, thank you for the questions, Veera. First questions first. Yes, the sheen is wearing off. The point is that, the first speech was great, a lot of punch dialogues and all of that, the ramp walk. The second meeting again in Madurai, ramp walk plus, punch dialogues and all that. But the Pondicherry speech, if you look at it, it's only for 12 minutes, and it was a bunch of rhetoric against the DMK, which is not absolutely in par in Pondicherry. ADMK is not a factor in Pondicherry, and then the reluctance to take on the BJP in Pondicherry, and then at the same time saying that Rangasamy, the Chief Minister of Pondicherry, is doing a terrific job, and the DMK has to learn from Rangasamy. I mean, completely, it didn't come out the way it is intended at all. As a person who takes on the ruling establishment, that did not work out in Pondicherry at all. That's the first point. The sheen is wearing off. Secondly, of course, the question of allies. Yes, the problem happens to be that nobody wants to leave either an established ADMK BJP alliance or the DMK alliance. That is number one. Number two is that who are the people who are available? That is the TTV Dinagaran's AMMK. There is OPS, the new party that has formed, workers' right. I mean, what is this? ADMK, Cadre Karagam or whatever. Now, the point is that if you take any of these people, it will become, as if you're supporting corruption. TTV Dinakaran has been in jail. OPS has a bunch of cases against him. So that is actually a no-go for, as far as Vijay is concerned. So the only option left for Vijay to be politically relevant is to go it alone. And then, like Chiranjeevi, take 15-16% of the votes and then wait for the next election, not 2029, but 2031. Does he have the staying power? Given the fact that the kind of pressure that he has faced after Karur Veera from both DMK, completely out in the open, in your face, and from the ADMK and the BJP, not really, so much in your face from the ADMK, but then from the BJP, huge pushback. So he's cornered from all sides as of now. So does he have the staying power? I don't think so. So he needs an ally right now. So that is only the ADMK. Now, ADMK is not going to leave the BJP and come to PVK because of the demands. So that's where we are at this point.
All right, that's where we are at this point. Ramaswamy Meyyappan, very briefly, do you believe that when it comes to seat sharing, both the DMK and the ADMK may be forced to part with more of the seats than they did perhaps in 2021, especially the DMK? And would you believe that that's when the real test of who's going to go with who is going to matter? Do you see allies, perhaps even parties like the Congress, trying to bargain with Vijay as well?
See, absolutely. The DMK is playing a very dangerous game with Tripurankundram in terms of trying to undo something that happened in 1923, went all the way to Privy Council. The anti-incumbency is what's reflected in their action here. And all of the parties in their coalition are going to demand, with anti-incumbency, you're not going to be the strongest one, give us more seats. Both Congress is going to demand, especially VCK is going to demand, with their increased strength. So when that happens, I think Vijay will become a bargaining chip for all of them to seek higher numbers. But similarly, the ADMK is very strongly placed in terms of the vote share, and the BJP being able to bring together a large alliance in terms of the Patali Makkal Katchi, in terms of being able to GK Vasan, Tamil Mandala Congress, and so many other parties. The ADMK will be willing to part with a smaller number, but will be able to withstand the strength.
Okay.
The only difference
Vijay is going even parties like PMK, everyone seems to be fishing with Vijay in the waters. But thanks to all three of you for joining us here this evening. Sam Daniel, of course, along with Vasudha Venugopal and Vijay Gopal of NDTV, will be tracking that Karur rally tomorrow very, very closely. Tomorrow morning, 11 to 1, NDTV will be tracking that Karur event and rally very closely. Do stay tuned for that. But for the moment, we'll take a very short break. When we come back, much more on the Southern View.
Very warm welcome to Walk the Talk. I'm joined by one of the world's top foreign affairs gurus, Fareed Zakaria. Welcome.
It takes decades to build trust, and it takes moments to break trust.
The United States recently came out with a new security strategy doctrine.
In this moment of extraordinary power and dominance, Trump's vision of America in the world is to retreat, to shrink, to shed its influence, make America a regional power again. For 80 years, it's been a global power. We want to be a regional power.
What does Sufism mean to you?
Sufism is about love. Higher ideals are more fascinating than normal love song or anything. Talk about Khwaja Mere Khwaja, Kun Faya Kun. It's all about higher ideals.
I'm bringing the same spirit to Delhi. So book your tickets from District app. See you, Delhi.
Across the country.
He has tracked the pulse of power from Washington to Korea. Witnessed history being made in global capitals and conflict zones. Brought clarity to complex issues of national security and international affairs. Aditya Raj Kaul, covering international affairs like no one else, only on NDTV network.
I just feel very privileged in the film industry, an industry that I'm extremely proud of.
I'm honored to receive this prestigious award.
I feel overwhelmed that the NDTV has chosen me for this very special award.
Thank you so very much. This means a lot to me.
It's a great honor and a great privilege.
Really blessed to get this, and I'm really happy.
This is one of the few moments I'm going to be humble, so please record this properly, guys.
आज का दिन सबसे पहले जो फुट सोल्जर्स, जो प्रिजाइडिंग ऑफिसर्स और जो टीम है उनको सेलिब्रेट करने का है.
And the NDTV Indian of the Year Award 2025 goes to
NDTV Indian of the Year 2025, 19 December, New Delhi. Ideas, inspiration, impact.
What does, say, 11 years of Modi compare with in a global context?
He's going strong. Part of it is a weak opposition. Part of it is he's very disciplined. This is his life. It's why I've said that Modi is probably the most consequential prime minister since Nehru. And he's reshaped politics. He's reshaped the nature of the kind of master narrative of Indian history.
What seems settled for me is unfinished business. So I rewind, I pause, I reflect, I dig until what's buried stands up to be counted. Breaking ground, not just headlines, the meaning behind them. This is Breaking Ground with me, Vedika Sood.
She stepped into the unknown and delivered a performance India is talking about. Meet the audacious Janhvi Kapoor at NDTV Indian of the Year 2025. You applauded the performance. Now meet the actor who defined it. Vicky Kaushal at the NDTV Indian of the Year 2025. A sensational debut. New heartthrob of a new India. Ahan Pandey at NDTV Indian of the Year 2025.
I don't sugarcoat. I shoot straight and tell you stories the way they need to be told. Unfiltered, unafraid, unmissable. That's how I roll. Watch me, Priyanka Deo, on NDTV World. Namaste.
A transformation you witnessed. Now, meet the force behind it. Jai Shah at the NDTV Indian of the Year 2025.
Namaste, India. As you all know, I've been traveling around the world with my music. But this one is truly special. Something that's India. You all must have seen the magic that was created in Kun Faya Kun. Now it's your chance to experience it with me. So book your tickets from District app and together let's create harmony of hearts. See you, Delhi.
Welcome back. Whether it's the manufacturing sector concerns or Operation Sindoor, comments by Congress leaders immediately evoke a sense of outrage and sharp reactions from the BJP. For instance, the BJP has sharply hit out at leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi for his comments on the manufacturing sector in India. While visiting the BMW plant in Germany, Rahul Gandhi had said that manufacturing in India, manufacturing is the base for strong economies and it's lagging in India. That comment got strong reactions from the BJP. BJP leaders hit back and claimed that Rahul Gandhi is tarnishing India's image with such comments on the world stage. Just listen in to this face-off.
Congress has taken it upon itself to do Bharat Badnami and in Modi Virod, how they go against India's economic prowess, army prowess or democratic prowess is evident for all to see. In the country, Prithviraj Chavan says India's army and air force could not handle Operation Sindoor. He says India's army is not required. And on foreign soil, Rahul Gandhi, who has once upon a time gone and said India's democracy is over and foreign countries should intervene, now goes and says that manufacturing in India is completely destroyed. This is the same Rahul Gandhi who spewed lies and said economy of India is dead. Unfortunately, except for manufacturing lies, Congress has done nothing. It undermines India's army's achievements, it undermines India's economic achievements and undermines India's democratic achievements. In Modi Virod, they will go and spread propaganda and lies on every and any issue.
बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हैं, सच कह रहे हैं और ये आलोचना नहीं, ये फैक्ट, और जो फैक्ट है वो तो कहा जाएगा वो सारी दुनिया को मालूम है। सवाल सिर्फ इतना सा उठता है कि विदेशी धरती पे जब प्रधानमंत्री जाके कहें कि सबसे भ्रष्टाचारी देश हिंदुस्तान था, मेरे पहले वहाँ लोग किसी का विश्वास नहीं करते। तो प्रधानमंत्री जर्मनी में, चाइना में, जापान में, हर देश में बोले तो वो बात जब आलोचना करें वो नहीं करें। पर ये तो दिस इज फैक्ट, ये तो पूरी दुनिया को मालूम है।
Those reactions to Rahul Gandhi's concerns over manufacturing in India came even as there is a heated attack on Congress leader and former Maharashtra Chief Minister Prithviraj Chavan for his comments on Operation Sindoor. Chavan had declared that India was defeated, quote unquote, on day one of the operation, a comment that evoked sharp criticism and reactions from the BJP. Chavan has refused to apologize for his comments, and this comes in the backdrop of many other comments by Congress leaders questioning Operation Sindoor, which may not be based or backed by hard evidence or facts. Listen into the reactions.
मोदींनी का मान्य केलं? पहिल्या दिवशी आपला संपूर्ण पराभव झाला. 7 तारखेला जे हवाई युद्ध अर्ध्या तासात झालं त्यामध्ये आपला टोटल पराभव झाला. हे कोणी मान्य करो अगर न करो, भारताची जी सैन्यामध्ये जी सुपेरियरिटी होती, आपल्याकडे जवळजवळ 12-15 लाखाचं स्टँडिंग आर्मी आहे, पाकिस्तानकडे 5-7 लाखाची, आपण खूप स्ट्रॉंग होतो त्या मानाने. पण ते सगळे संपले कारण त्याला युद्धच होणार नाही. त्यामुळे तुमच्याकडे 12 लाख सैन्य आहे का 25 लाख सैन्य आहे का 1 कोटी सैन्याला काय अर्थ राहिला नाही, कारण युद्धच होणार नाही, कोणी करूनच देणार नाही तुम्हाला. ते आत्ता आपण ऑपरेशन सिंदूरमध्ये पाहिलं की मिलिटरीची 1 किलोमीटरसुद्धा कुठं हालचाल झाली नाही. ते 2-3 दिवस झालं ते फक्त हवाई युद्ध झालं, मिसाईल युद्ध झालं. आता पुढची युद्ध तशीच होणार आहेत. मग आपल्याला 12 लाख आर्मी ठेवायची काय गरज आहे का? मग त्यांच्याकडे दुसरं काहीतरी काम करून घेऊ आपण.
बिल्कुल सवाल नहीं उठता। हाँ जी सर, नहीं सवाल नहीं उठता। सवाल मैं बात करूंगा ना डिटेल में।
माफी मांगने का सवाल
माफी का मांगू?
लेकिन आपके हिसाब से स्टेटमेंट गलत था क्या सर?
बिल्कुल
लोग मीडिया में वही सब जगह ऐसे ही चला कि अपमान हुआ है।
मैं करूंगा, डिटेल बात करूंगा जी। आई विल टॉक टू मीडिया प्रॉपर्ली।
सो आर यू अपोलोजाइजिंग राइट नाउ?
अरे आउट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन।
कौन क्या कह रहा है ये उससे मुझे कुछ लेना देना नहीं। सेना के शौर्य पर किसी को गाली देने का अधिकार नहीं है। जो लोग सेना के शौर्य को अपमानित करते हैं वो कभी देश हित की बात सोच ही नहीं सकते।
Well, joining us now are political analysts Sanjay Jha and Rajat Sethi, who represent divergent political views but both astute with their observations. Let me get to you, Rajat Sethi, first. Is there a sense of overreaction when there are comments made by Congress leaders? Is it justified? Look, there are two different issues. One is on manufacturing sector concerns and the other is on Operation Sindoor. The question of questioning facts is okay, but a sense of outrage at Congress leaders making comments, is it justified or is it an overreaction?
So let me start off by saying that I hold Prithviraj Chavan among the the set of Congress leaders as somebody who is more of an analytical mind. I remember, when I used to organize conferences at MIT, he used to come in and sit as a student and used to listen and take notes when he was serving as a chief minister, by the way. So I hold him that when he's saying something, he's saying that less from politics and more from an analytical perspective. But here, what my divergent point of view is that when he's trying to make an assertion, what data is he backing upon? Is he going after the narratives being said by China, being said by Pakistan and others? Because clearly now there is evidence which has emerged saying that all the narrative around Op Sindoor and the losses, so quote unquote losses that have been met by Indian forces was largely it was the hand job of the Chinese social media influencers who tried to peddle this and tried to for arms race or whatever they wanted to. Their ultimate goal was they wanted to belittle Rafale in respect to their own airplanes and whatnot. So you need to go 3-4 orders deeper to understand what is the motive behind how stories are planted around a military operation. So before falling into that trap, he should have done more justice to getting to the bottom of it and then making these rather strange statements backed by no evidence. I mean, other leaders in Congress do that. I wouldn't have taken it seriously. But him doing that, I believe he's more responsible than what he said, the statements that he made.
Okay, you're saying it should be based by facts. Sanjay Jha, these are two separate issues. One is of the manufacturing sector, which I'll come to next, but the other is on Operation Sindoor. Is it fair to make statements which are not based on facts? And is the sense of outrage to what Prithviraj Chavan has said justified?
Firstly, good to be back on your program again, Veera, and good evening to my friend Rajat as well. What is basically Prithviraj Chavan saying? Go back and look at the context, leave the rhetoric, and let's look at facts. And because we should not discuss war in a casual way, go back to what General VP Malik, who was the chief of the army staff during the Kargil war, what did he tweet when the ceasefire was announced? He said he was surprised. He said, what could we have gained in a 3-day military skirmish? I mean, did it really achieve its purpose? Go back to what General Anil Chauhan, our CDS, said in Singapore, that we did lose jets. He didn't specify how many. And it led to a recalibration of the military strategy in the other 2 days that followed. Then you have even that Captain Shiv Kumar, a defense attaché from Indonesia, who said there was a political intervention that prevented the Air Force or the Army to take the steps they would have liked to. And last but not the least, actually, there is a lot of it out there in the public domain, because what Prithviraj Chavan has said is nothing new. This is, by the way, not just Donald Trump talking in the United Nations that several jets were brought down. It's a US congressional report. And that's something, Veera, that even Rajat, he and I are on opposite sides most of the time. But we got to look at it in a very dispassionate way. This is not Trump. This is a US Congress report, which means this is the view of the US government. And I'm quoting from there, right? And guess what they say? Pakistan's military success over India showcased Chinese weaponry. These are the exact words from that report. I have not seen Mr. Modi's government contradict that. Mr. Modi himself never challenged the very surprise ceasefire that happened on May 10th by ever addressing it to Donald Trump face to face, which is why there has been, in my opinion,
get Rajat Sethi to respond to what you're saying. Rajat, the point Sanjay is making is that there are multiple narratives, and the sense of outrage to a questioning of a certain operation belies a certain sense of insecurity. Would you agree?
Well, see, you either have to be blind or stupid to not see that India decisively had shown Pakistan its place in Operation Sindoor. The imagery, the videos of random places being, bombed, and not a single incident of such a bombing happening in India is more than evidence than what these analysts with several hidden political / military motives are writing in reports. I'd give no two hoots about who's publishing what. I have confidence in my defense forces, and I have confidence in my country and what my country says. That is first and foremost. Therefore, when you draw, and when Prithviraj Chavanji is trying to pull out one anecdote on the first day and belittling what was done in the next 2 days, apparently, according to him, shows a sense of sadistic pleasure that he wants to draw out by mentioning any kind of a loss as the broad brush stroke of what happened in the Operation Sindoor. That, I feel, is deeply sadistic pleasure he wants to draw out only because of political reasons, because Prime Minister Modi is the current head of the state, head of the...
So let me take that point that you're making. Hold your thought there. Sanjay Jha, the point that Rajat is making is very important. In an environment in the world where multiple narratives are putting out, nobody knows what the truth is. Why use petty political objectives to take pot shots at a military force? Even if there are questions, that needs to be raised in private, not in public fora.
Well, let me tell you one thing, Veera. The issue of national security, cross-border terrorism is not just the prerogative of the government. Everyone, including the opposition, is an elected member of parliament. We represent the voice of the people. Questioning the government is exactly what is the job of any opposition, right? And by the way, can Rajat deny that the entire opposition stood with the Modi government and said, listen, whatever you do to kind of put Pakistan in its place, we'll back you to the T. But here is the problem, Veera. that end of day, Mr. Modi's government, whether it comes to GDP, employment numbers, or anything else, they operate in smokes and mirrors. One of the reasons behind this whole conversation on the number of jets brought on, etc., which has frankly created worldwide gossip and articles and interpretations, is because this government is actually operating in a very opaque fashion. You haven't even had an apology from this government for Pulwama and Pahalgam to its own people. So, you operate in a very different style. And I think end of day, what was Prithviraj Chavan saying? He's saying stuff that is in the public domain. And I gave the names of 3 people from India's defense services who were surprised, number one, as to why India, if it was looking strong, which we were, why did we suddenly let Pakistan off the hook? And I think this government has no answers to that as yet, which is why Donald Trump is rubbing their nose into the ground.
You both have made strong points. I wish I had more time because I wanted to discuss the question of manufacturing as well. Should there be outrage about it? Should there be a factual debate? Unfortunately, we've lost time and we can't do that. But thanks very much, Rajat Sethi and Sanjay Jha, for joining us. Obviously, this face-off will play out for many, many more days to come. But now, to a life or death issue. On the early morning of the 12th of December, a 34-year-old man in Bengaluru, Venkatraman's family, was desperate to save his life after he collapsed with a chest pain, but couldn't. They went to one hospital, which sent them to another, which again sent them to a third hospital. They begged and pleaded for help to get to the third hospital at 4 a.m. in the morning, but many just saw and didn't stop to help, till finally a cab driver took them to the third hospital. But by then, it was too late. It's a tragic reminder, perhaps, of the absence of emergency help in most cases. Ritu Raj Purohit spoke to 34-year-old Venkatraman's family.
I'm joined by the family members of Venkataraman, who's of course no more, but a lot has been left behind for them. Rupa, if you could tell us what really happened firstly. I mean, you were there with your husband, you wanted to take him to the hospital. What really happened firstly?
From 3:30 I has pain more. Okay, after that he told to keep hot water. I kept him hot water. After that I told him to wait, I'll inform your sister, I told, but he told I can't. It's paining more. So if you come for hospital or no, he told, but I'll come and I told him. I went and for hospital, for Udbha hospital. In Udbha hospital they said the duty doctor was not there. Then the security guy told that you go Real Life hospital. We went for Real Life hospital. There the doctor was there. But he took ECG, but he didn't give any medicine also. Actually, my husband asked him, give me a first aid, but the doctor didn't give. Even he didn't make ambulance facilities also. He told to go straight for Jaydev hospital. Then we went to Jaydev hospital. In Kadrinalli circle, we got accident. After that, I asked the cars and all went, autos and all went. But I asked help. No one helped us. After that, lastly, his sister came after 10 minutes. I think lastly his sister came. She gave CRP and all. After that, he was not there. After lastly, one of the cab driver came and he called him in for the Dayananda Sagar hospital. The Dayananda Sagar hospital doctor also took ECG. ECG was not normal. Then they said no more.
Rupa, I mean, just 800 meters away you were, the hospital was just 800 meters away. You say that for 3 minutes, I have seen him, he was struggling basically, in the pain basically. If ambulance had reached on time or the bypasses had really helped you and him, probably today he would have been saved.
Yeah, today I was saved him. If any ambulance or car was giving help us, today he was there. Today you will be.
How many hospitals did you visit in total before?
Before him, 2 hospitals, ma'am. One Udbha hospital and one Real Life hospital, ma'am.
Okay, so you're saying in the second hospital that you had visited, they had said him about the minor stroke therein. So you're saying they should have addressed it in a better way, probably by keeping him there only until unless an ambulance arrived there, or they did not you seek them a help saying, can you arrange for us an ambulance? What happened there?
They asked from how you came, we said we came from 2-wheeler, but they didn't make any ambulance also. They didn't give any tablet also. They told straight, you go now only, it's too severe, you go Jaydev hospital. That's all.
But the passerby, I saw you are jumping for the help. You yourself are bleeding with the blood, basically. The blood was all over your face as well. You are seeking a help. But the passerbys, none of them jumped in to help therein. How do you see this? How that the humanity has really died in that terms, basically? Nobody came in help.
Yeah, nobody came. I was thinking at least any one car will stop, but no one didn't help. That's all. It's too paining, ma'am. It's too. That's all. Still now it's paining more and more, ma'am. I'm struggling of 2 kids, ma'am. My daughter and my son. They are too small. One is 5 years son, and one more is 1.5 year girl baby, ma'am.
Ma'am, you had to reach the spot right after, you had got a call. You tried to give him a CPR as well, tried to save him too. What really happened? Were you able to take him to the hospital? What the doctor said that if he was taken in advance, there was a chance to save him, or how?
See, when she was directing me and I reached her, to him and me, there was only, I believe, 3 to 5 minutes vary. But the thing is, I tried my best by giving CPR and all. I tried my level best. But the thing is, I felt humanity died there. Even before me, she was crying for help. And it was not about the man there also. It was a woman. She was bleeding herself, and the blood was all over her t-shirt. Anyone by seeing her also, they could have stopped, they could have asked her what happened, and they could have taken him and her as well, even before me reaching. Because when I reached, I could sense his pulse was not beating. He was no more. When I gave CPR, he was no more.
Multiple layers to that human story. We'll keep a focus on that, but to a bit of breaking news that's coming in right now on the show. It's now clear that the Lok Sabha will discuss the pollution issue tomorrow. Environment Minister Bhupendra Yadav is likely to respond to questions raised by the opposition on the pollution in the national capital, which has hit severe and terrible levels. The Lok Sabha will hold a discussion amidst rising pollution in the national capitals. Obviously, members of parliament in the national capital also choking without clean air, and that's a big focus in parliament tomorrow. We have another bit of breaking news that's coming in, and this is from the cricket field, and that's because of fog. We believe the toss in the India-South Africa match has been delayed due to fog in Lucknow. The 4th T20 in Lucknow tonight. Those tuning in can tune in a bit later because inspection is once again on at 8 p.m. and we'll see how that plays out there. That'll be an important toss there, but it's delayed because of weather conditions there in Lucknow. Those 2 bits of breaking news that are coming in at the moment. That's all we have time for on the Southern View. News and updates continue right here on NDTV.
Fenesta Windows, beautiful and durable designs, इंस्टॉलेशन से मेंटेनेंस की लाइफ लॉन्ग कस्टमर सर्विस। आपके घर में फिनेस्टा नहीं है तो कॉल कीजिए।
Finer Fenesta. They ruled the world, won 1 billion hearts. Now meet the champions who made the nation proud. The Indian women's cricket team at the NDTV Indian of the Year. The front lines of Kargil. The fury of Operation Sindoor.
So many attacks.
The chaos and cries of disaster zones. To fighter jet cockpits. And the world's most defining interviews.
It's incredible.
He has seen history break. Live. Unfiltered. 20,000 hours of live broadcasting.
Welcome to Left, Right and Centre.
Hard facts.
War-struck country.
Hard questions.
In the Ukraine.
30 years of trust.
In the Kargil area. North Ukraine. In France, in Italy. At Srinagar. Vishnu Shom for NDTV.
Vishnu Shom. Only on NDTV.
What does Sufism mean to you?
Sufism is about love. Higher ideals are more fascinating than normal love song or anything. Talk about Khwaja Mere Khwaja, Kun Faya Kun. It's all about higher ideals. I'm bringing the same spirit to Delhi. So book your tickets from District app. See you, Delhi.
Very warm welcome to Walk the Talk. I'm joined by one of the world's top foreign affairs gurus, Fareed Zakaria. Welcome.
It takes decades to build trust, and it takes moments to break trust.
The United States recently came out with a new security strategy doctrine.
In this moment of extraordinary power and dominance, Trump's vision of America in the world is to retreat, to shrink, to shed its influence, make America a regional power again. For 80 years, it's been a global power. We want to be a regional power.
Across the country, he has tracked the pulse of power from Washington to Korea. Witnessed history being made in global capitals and conflict zones. Brought clarity to complex issues of national security and international affairs. Aditya Raj Kaul, covering international affairs like no one else. Only on NDTV network.
I just feel very privileged in the film industry, an industry that I'm extremely proud of.
I'm honored to receive this prestigious award.
I feel overwhelmed that the NDTV has chosen me for this very special award.
Thank you so very much. This means a lot to me.
It's a great honor and a great privilege.
Really blessed to get this, and I'm really happy.
This is one of the few moments I'm going to be humble, so please record this properly, guys.
आज का दिन सबसे पहले जो फुट सोल्डर्स, जो प्रिजाइडिंग ऑफिसर्स और जो टीम है उनको सेलिब्रेट करने का है.
And the NDTV Indian of the Year Award 2025 goes to
NDTV Indian of the Year 2025, 19 December, New Delhi. Ideas, inspiration, impact.
What seems settled for me is unfinished business. So I rewind, I pause, I reflect, I dig until what's buried stands up to be counted. Breaking ground, not just headlines, the meaning behind them. This is Breaking Ground with me, Vedika Sood.
She stepped into the unknown and delivered a performance India is talking about. Meet the audacious Janhvi Kapoor at NDTV Indian of the Year 2025. You applauded the performance. Now meet the actor who defined it. Vicky Kaushal at the NDTV Indian of the Year 2025.
I don't sugarcoat. I shoot straight and tell you stories the way they need to be told. Unfiltered, unafraid, unmissable. That's how I roll. Watch me, Priyanka Deo, on NDTV World. Namaste.
A sensational debut. New heartthrob of a new India. Ahan Pandey.
Joined by one of the world's top foreign affairs gurus, Fareed Zakaria.
It takes decades to build trust, and it takes moments to break trust.
The United States recently came out with a new security strategy doctrine.
In this moment of extraordinary power and dominance, Trump's vision of America in the world is to retreat, to shrink, to shed its influence, make America a regional power again.
What does, say, 11 years of Modi compare with in a global context?
He's going strong. Part of it is a weak opposition. Part of it is he's very disciplined. He's reshaped the nature of the kind of master narrative of Indian history.
Hello and a very warm welcome to Walk the Talk. I'm Rahul Kanwal and we are currently in Goa at the sidelines of the Sangam conference, which really looks to build on the India-US corridor. And relations between Delhi and DC have seen more tumult over the past few months than they have over the last several years. Where are we at between India and Washington? Are the trade tensions just temporary turbulence, or are they suggesting a fundamental reset in ties between our two countries? To talk about this, I'm joined by one of the world's top foreign affairs gurus, Fareed Zakaria, looking super sharp in the shades, walking around the beaches of Goa. Fareed, welcome.
Welcome. Always a pleasure to talk to you, Rahul.
It's terrific to have you here. You've had a couple of very insightful days at the Sangam conference trying to build out the India-US corridor. For the last 2.5 decades, it was assumed that ties between Delhi and DC would keep getting better. The past few months have shown that that assumption may not necessarily be true. Are we seeing just some temporary turbulence, or could we potentially be staring at a more fundamental recast?
I hope it's temporary turbulence because let's put it in perspective. For the last 25 years, the United States has made a strategic decision that it wants to have a much closer relationship with India. And that has been a relationship built on the idea of shared values, shared interests, in many ways, the reality of a diaspora, an Indian diaspora that has made America more aware of India, technological cooperation, all kinds of areas where the two countries are kind of natural allies. We are now going through, let's just depersonalize it for a moment, we're going through a period of turbulence around trade. Donald Trump is a very passionate protectionist. He believes in mercantilism, in squeezing countries for better deals, and India itself has a history of protectionism. So this is a hard negotiation anyway. You add to it Donald Trump's mercurial, volatile, irreverent personality, and it makes it much worse. So no question, this is a bad moment for US-India government-to-government relations. But I think if you think of that broader context, we're in much better shape. And as you say, the point of, the reason I started this Sangam conference with the help of a few others, Eric Schmidt and Hemant Taneja in the US, Nandan Nilekani and others in India, is to help build the underpinnings of this relationship, So the idea is to strengthen the corridor between India's great tech entrepreneurs and America's technologists, India's great businessmen and American businesses, India's scientific establishment, America's science establishment, because in all those areas, I think fundamentally there's a huge convergence of interests and values, and we could build it out without worrying about what the particular government-to-government momentary spat is or isn't.
Nandan Nilekani said in his concluding remarks that Sangam almost feels like a track 2 between India and Washington, and that struck me as being very ironical because the kind of countries we've needed a track 2 with before this are typically India and Pakistan, potentially Delhi and Beijing. We've never really needed a track 2 with the United States. Now, trade seems to have become front and center of the relationship. So while others continue, say deep tech, defense, technology, etc., we don't seem to be able to cross the line on the trade deal. How far are we at this moment from your lens? There's so much noise. What's the signal you're picking up?
The signal I'm picking up, and now we're all just reading tea leaves, is that there is a deal to be had. At the end of the day, we know what the areas of difficulty are, which largely are around Indian agriculture. But the way I think of it, Donald Trump is transactional. If Prime Minister Modi were to say to him, look, you're a politician, I'm a politician, I can't make these concessions on agriculture. I have elections to face. But in return, here are the things I can do. And then, you know the things Trump cares about. Investment in America, buy some American products, maybe defense products, whatever it is. I think there's a deal to be had. And remember, the most important thing with Donald Trump, it is the announcement of the deal is all he cares about. You can announce that you're going to invest $200 billion in the United States. He's not going to check 6 months later how much have you invested. If you look at his history with all these kind of deals, he wants the announcement of the deal. He is not that concerned about the nitty-gritty of following it up.
No, when the US Assistant Trade Representative was in Delhi, he said, India has made very significant concessions and we have a good deal on the table. Then the Indian Commerce Minister stepped out and said, then why don't we just sign the deal? So according to you, and you were reading tea leaves, you said, what is your reading of the tea leaves telling you? Why aren't we being able to sign this deal? Is it about two principals getting into a room and actually getting the deal done?
I think in both systems right now, you have a system where the final decision maker is all powerful and everything waits on a final okay from that person. I can't tell you but I can bet you that the issue is that you need a final okay from Modi and a final okay from Trump. So what really needs to happen is they need to have a conversation. And I think the challenge is, my guess is that in the Prime Minister's office, there's great concern. If you have a conversation with Donald Trump, he's kind of an uncontrollable figure and he may ask for things, he may say things, and where does that place Prime Minister Modi? So they're going to, I think ultimately the issue is the relationship between these two, and can they land the plane?
No, but look at what happened in the last supposed conversation. We never know what happens, but Donald Trump says, hey, I stopped the war between India and Pakistan, and Delhi keeps insisting publicly and privately, no, you did not. And that really shows how these true, strong personalities can have a disagreement, which then causes major rupture. And from Prime Minister Modi's perspective, it's not his fault, because the facts on the Indian side are Washington did not stop the war. It put some pressure on Islamabad for sure, but it's not as if their pressure dictated Indian action.
I think that this is again a case where, look, let's be honest. The fundamental reality is India needs the American market more than America needs the Indian market. India needs the deal more than America needs the deal. So,
but not at the cost of its respect.
Understood. But India is going to have to be creative about addressing this concern that the American president has. I think it is a completely unwise policy that Trump is pursuing. It's this crazy quest to claim that he's stopped all the wars in the world and therefore deserves the Nobel Prize. But, he's the president of the United States. So, you tell me if I'm wrong. As I recall, in previous episodes like this, Prime Minister Vajpayee, for example, would often say things like, we are very thankful that the United States has assisted in bringing this to a close, or in lowering tensions, or in prevailing on Pakistan, or whatever language was used.
Modi.
Right, Vajpayee is not Modi, which gets me to my point. We have strong personalities on both sides of this relationship, and the reality is, Trump is a complicated guy in many ways, but he does understand leverage, and he knows that India needs this more than he does. Now, he may miscalculate and not realizing the point you made, that India is very proud, very nationalistic, and will take economic pain rather than do certain things. But surely there's a creative way to say to Trump, yes, you were very helpful in achieving a ceasefire, without saying you actually brokered the ceasefire. This is what diplomacy is about. These formulations that allow both sides in some way or the other to feel satisfied.
Farid, I asked this question to Dr. Jaishankar at the Hindustan Times Leadership Summit, and he said that India simply cannot do the kind of things that Pakistan did, buy cryptocurrency, nominate Trump for the Nobel Prize. So it's a very unequal situation where Pakistan's, it's a basket case country. They can say whatever they want to please Trump. In India, Modi's got democracy, all his voters, he's careful of his own image. He can't say the kind of stuff that Pakistan is.
I agree, and I think it's to India's credit that it's not a country like that, where you can't have these kind of wheeling, dealing, these deals. And so what India has to play for is that it is a serious country with a serious foreign policy, with serious negotiators, but who are also skilled at arriving at at making a deal, not through kind of obsequious flattery and, kind of various forms of payments and this, that, and the other, but rather through the strength of the position, a creative way to come out to bridge a difference. Look, Trump does make deals, if you look at with China, if you look at even with the European Union. And in all of those cases, he respects a certain strength and steadiness. So India is smaller economically, but I think if it comes across as strong, steady, competent, intelligent, I think there's a path forward.
We've spoken about the India-US relation. Let's spend a moment talking about the US and China relationship. For a long time, it was said that the one thing that's holding China back in the AI race is because they don't have access to the most advanced NVIDIA chips. Now Trump's handing over those chips to Beijing on a platter. Is that just economic, technical, technological harakiri?
I think it's a mistake. I wouldn't describe it as strongly as that. But, you know, Trump has moved in a number of bewildering ways on this. And I think one way to think about this is Trump seems to view the China relationship and China essentially just through economic lenses. He just looks at China and says, if I can make a deal, they're a big economy, I'm a big economy, we can prosper, and you know, there's no problem. And he's a little worried about critical minerals and things like that, where the US needs to be able to supply them. But he doesn't seem as focused on the fact that, you know, China is going to quadruple or quintuple its nuclear arsenal in the next 10 or 15 years. It is engaged in a very, very significant military buildup. I think by some measures, it is the largest military buildup in modern history over the last 20 years. So China has for a long time been geostrategically rising and searching for influence. It's searching for bases.
But you can't, Washington cannot look at China just from an economic lens.
This is my point. So the puzzling part here is, the issue is, do you want to help China not just accelerate its AI development, but use these chips in the Chinese military, in military and defense technologies, which they clearly will do. And so there's a potential that American technology will be used against it in a clash over Taiwan. So I am a proponent of not having too many barriers to trade, even in the name of national security. But
you can't think of your enemies as your friends.
Right, these core technologies which have military applications, it seem to me you have to withhold them, because otherwise you are empowering the military of an adversarial power.
The United States recently came out with a new security strategy doctrine. And the broad sense to commentators seems to be that is the US now moving away from wanting to be a global superpower, the super cop of the world, to essentially repositioning itself as a power for the region, for the Americas, rather than thinking of the whole world? And how much of a mistake do you see that as being?
Yeah, you put it exactly right. To me, the puzzling piece about this, Rahul, is the US is dominant in the world, right? If you look at where the US is vis-a-vis Europe, you know, 25 years ago, roughly speaking, Eurozone, Europe, and the US economies were the same size. Germany and US roughly the same per capita GDP. US is now double the Eurozone economy. It's, you know, 50% higher wages than European countries. Europe is poor in comparison to the US now. US technology dominates the world. US tech companies have market caps that are larger than the entire stock exchange of Germany. And yet, in this moment of extraordinary power and dominance, Trump's vision of America in the world is to retreat, to shrink, to shed its influence. It's, you know, I've been thinking about this, that the title of the national security strategy document that Trump has put out could be "Make America a Regional Power Again." For 80 years, it's been a global power. We want to be a regional power. And in what region? Latin America, which is economically of almost no consequence to the United States. You have a bunch of small economies. The United States does not have that much. In fact, China is a bigger trading partner with almost all of them. Geopolitically, of very little consequence, but Trump is obsessed with it. Look at what he's doing in Venezuela. So it's a profoundly mistaken view of America's role in the world, where it's as if the only thing that the most powerful country in the history of the world should be worried about is migrants and drug boats, which are concerns, but I mean, the US can handle a lot of things at the same time.
He also seems to like these strongman leaders, these authoritarian leaders like Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, rather than the democracies of, say, Europe. and other places in the world, which is where there should be a natural affinity. What do you make of that personality trait, that he sees Europe and he sees problems rather than seeing allies, which is what European countries actually are for the US?
Well, you put it exactly right. Democratic leaders are always, in a sense, weaker and more compromised and more constrained than a dictatorship. And this is true even of Prime Minister Modi. He has to, he can't make certain concessions, as we were discussing, because agriculture is a big constituency in India. But to me, the biggest strategic error here is if India wants to compete in the world against its one great economic competitor, China, right? If it wants to make sure that it is not dependent on China for critical supplies, for precursor chemicals to pharmaceuticals, solar panels, whatever it is, there is only one country that has the scale to match China, and that's India. And look, in one area which was started under the Biden administration but continued under Trump, India has shown that. Washington's great worry was that it was overly dependent on China for smartphone production. Tapped India 4 years ago. In 4 years, India has become the leading exporter of smartphones in the United States. 44% of all smartphones that come to America are made in India. That's up from
but the tariffs create uncertainty.
There are no tariffs
expansion.
on any of this. There are so many exemptions to all these tariffs.
But they create the specter of uncertainty.
It does. It does. Look, what I'm trying to get at is India has the scale to match China, and so you should be leaning in on that. And if you want to, on a broader economic strategy, if you want to counter, China's economic heft, you can only do it with Europe, with India, with Japan, with Australia. US by itself, no matter how strong it is, cannot match China because China is 4 times the population. And it has asserted dominance in certain parts of the manufacturing space that US is not going to get back into. The US can't manufacture precursor chemicals for pharmaceuticals, but India can. The US can't do certain kinds of manufacturing, but South Korea and Japan can. So the great advantage the US has is it has these treaties, these allies, who are the richest, most powerful countries in the world. What does China have? It has one formal treaty alliance, North Korea. Okay, let's add Russia. That's it. And so rather than building on the strength of these alliances, what Trump is doing is sort of fighting with the allies, fighting with Europe, fighting with India, rather than using them as an ecosystem that can compete with the Chinese ecosystem.
One of the things that American commentators like Ken Juster or Jake Sullivan have been saying is that India needs to invest more in buying armaments from the United States. I was at a meeting with some of the most important voices in India's defense sector, serving officers as well, and they said, what's happened over the past few months creates immense distrust. Which serving officer will sign off on an acquisition of a highly sensitive, high-tech kind of purchase without having the fear lurking at the back of his head that when you need this weapon to fire, I wonder if the US will allow for that to happen.
And it's a particular problem in modern weapon systems, because in the old days, when you get a fighter jet, you got the jet. You could service it, you could run it, it's now yours. Today, all sophisticated machinery are essentially a meld of hardware and software.
Sure.
So if, let's say, India wants to get into a military intervention with somebody, and the US disapproves of it, could the US deny them software upgrades? Could they in some way...
Or will the chips work at the right time?
Right, exactly. And so, and I think so that fear is entirely legitimate. And it's one more way in which this policy of Trump's is self-defeating. Because, if you think of it, the fundamental issue we're talking about is it takes decades to build trust and it takes moments to break trust. And my fear is that what Trump has done has broken trust, not just with India, with Canada, with Europe. And it's going to be a different world, partly because of that, because you can never quite get back the trust that you've lost. You can do some things, but you'll never be back to where you were.
What did you make of Russian President Vladimir Putin's visit to Delhi? I was at the Rashtrapati Bhavan for the state dinner, and often leaders come and nobody's really excited, but everyone there was really charged up because they knew they were in the presence of a person from history. He seems to have quite a lot of appeal in India.
Look, He's a strong man. He's built a kind of mythology around him. I've met him. I've interviewed him. He's a very intelligent guy. He's passionately anti-Western. But I think that the energy in the room that you're describing was a gift from Trump, because this was at a moment where the US had turned its back on India. And so it was nice for India to be able to show that it had friends, that it had countries that respected it. So it's a gift from Donald Trump.
One of the arguments you've been making, Fareed, is that India should not look at high-tech weapon purchases from the United States. But take, for example, the 5th generation fighter aircraft. The US has offered, say, an F-35. It's at least on the table as part of a negotiation. But the Russians are offering co-production, technology transfer, which, given where India is at on the tech curve to produce a fighter aircraft, might not then seem like a bad idea. So is Donald Trump really pushing India to making potentially suboptimal choices, but choices which are justified given the security situation?
Well, look, I think, if you can't trust the Americans, you certainly can trust the Russians less in regard to these things. But the point
Why? Because Russian equipment has always stood by India, and Russia has stood by India when push comes to shove.
Yeah, but the truth is, with Russia, for example, you have no idea what's happening. This is ruled by one man. There is no system. There is no Politburo. Russia could be a very chaotic place. Secondly, it's significantly worse technology. But the broader point that I was making to you, Rahul, is India needs to think about a revolution in military affairs that is taking place because of technology.
Sure.
What I've been to Ukraine many times, and what I've been struck by, when you go out particularly closer to where the battlefield is, what you see is it's all drone-on-drone warfare. It's all automated. It's all unmanned. Increasingly, artificial intelligence is infused into it. And I'll give you one example. The United States gave Ukraine about 50, I can't remember the exact number, about 50 Abrams tanks. These are the best tanks in the world. Every single one of those tanks was rendered inoperable, was essentially shot by a Russian drone that costs less than $10,000 to make.
Sure.
So these are multi-million-dollar tanks destroyed by thousands of dollars worth of drones. Same thing happened to the Russian Air Force by the Ukrainian drones. So should India be thinking about skipping a generation and investing much more heavily in the defense technology of what I'm confident will be the future, which is unmanned aircraft, unmanned drones, unmanned vehicles, And so before you make a huge purchase on either side, I would think that India should really think about the technological landscape that it faces, what are the likely uses of military force. And I'm not saying I'm sure that would be the most useful way, but I look at these tanks and these huge expensive jets and aircraft carriers, and I feel like this is a world that is going by. These are all sitting ducks for very cheap automated weaponry that increasingly will have artificial intelligence, which means that, with the tanks, what they do is they go down to the point of vulnerability. A tank has 2 points of vulnerability, the hatch and then underneath. And they go and precisely detonate at that point. Maybe that's the future.
I want to talk to you about the Russia-Ukraine war. It seems President Zelensky has, ceded some space, maybe he's been forced to, and agreed to some of the conditions which should have potentially led to a ceasefire. Right now, Putin doesn't seem interested. How do you see this play out in the coming months?
So Trump had a strategy to end the war in Ukraine. I think it's fair to say that he had a real strategy. It's not one I agree with, but it's basically force the Ukrainians to make all the concessions, threaten them with abandonment if they don't make the concessions, present these concessions to Putin, and Putin will then, agree, the war will be ended, Trump will get the Nobel Peace Prize. As we all know, he's obsessed with that. Now, the problem was, he did that. He got Zelensky to make the concessions. He presented that deal to Putin in Alaska, and Putin said no. And Putin said no because, like any good negotiator, he realized he was on a roll. He was getting more and more of what he was asking for. And so he upped the demands. And now his demands are Ukraine can't have an army larger than 600,000 and, et cetera, et cetera. So the challenge now is, will Trump go through with his threat, essentially implied, that he will really cut Ukraine off, which he has already in many substantial ways abandoned it. Intel cooperation is lower, weapons supply is much lower, down to a trickle really. And if he does that, the Ukrainians are in very serious trouble. Or will he understand that, look, the place you need to put the pressure is Russia. That's the party that is not agreeing to the deal. That's where you need to focus your attention.
Farid, we're at the end of 2025. A new year is on the horizon. For those who are watching and they're always wanting to know what you think of geopolitics and geostrategy, what are the key trends you'd want them to look out for in 2026?
You know, for most of my career, when I've thought about this question, you sort of look around the world and ask yourself, where are there crises happening? And how will the United States in particular handle these crises? Today, when I travel around the world, almost everywhere the question is, what is the United States doing to cause disruption and difficulties in my part of the world? And how will we manage the American disruption? So it's a very different dynamic that's taking place. So ultimately, honestly, I do think that the single most important question that none of us have an answer to is what will America's mood, role, policy be in a world going forward? So far, it does feel like Trump is acting in the way we've been describing. World of great powers, pay attention to Russia, China, don't pay a lot of attention to the others. That world is going to be a world of dog eat dog, a world where might makes right. It's not a very attractive world after 8 decades of an open, rule-based international system.
If you were writing a book right now and projecting out a decade later, what do you think the world order in 2035 looks like?
Well, I feel like I've already written it. It's called the post-American world. Because I think what has happened is the United States, and this is what I predicted in the book, that the United States, the problem is going to be not that China is so strong or that Russia is so strong, but that the United States will lose the desire and the internal capacity to play the kind of central organizing role it's played in the world. And so the question is, what comes after that? Will there be a kind of free-for-all? Will other countries freelance? Or, what's interesting is if you want to look at the hopeful side, on the trade side, the US has gone from being the world's leading free trade power to the world's leading protectionist power in 6 months. The rest of the world didn't go along with that. In Europe in particular, did not retaliate with tariffs, and so we don't have a global trade war. That's the big difference between today and the 1930s. And so maybe there is a realization around the world that, look, the whole world has benefited from an open international system with rules and the convention that you don't just invade your neighboring country and acquire territories. And so maybe what we'll see is a kind of coalition of countries that want to maintain this order, even if the United States is less interested. And by the way, I would very much hope India would be a leading part of that coalition.
And finally, what does a post-Trump United States look like? Now, does it kind of revert back to the mean, or has Trump taken it in a direction from where the US doesn't come back? Because we don't know potentially what a J.D. Vance presidency hypothetically could look like. Could it be more of the same or worse, or does it revert back to the mean?
So remember, Trump is very unpopular in the United States right now. He is essentially the lowest approval ratings of any president in American history. But he has his base, which is very substantial and very committed to him no matter what he does. Like I've never seen anything like that. The level of commitment of his base, that is his strength. That's why he tries very hard to keep that base happy, because they are with him through thick and thin. So that means the nature of American debate has changed. And after 8 decades of a certain kind of broad strategic continuity, you have a debate in the United States about how to engage with the world. Now, I think that means we're in for a period of volatility and back and forth. So when, not just Democrats get back into power, but maybe a moderate Republican gets back into power, that policy will probably be much more in continuity with America's long-standing global role. But if a MAGA person like J.D. Vance gets in, I think all bets are off.
Farid, we've been speaking of geopolitics. I want to spend a moment on Desi politics, because typically when you look at the rest of the world, 11, 12 years of being in power leads to anti-incumbency catching up, a certain fatigue in government. In the Bihar elections we saw recently, the BJP and the JDU win much bigger than they have over the past 20 years. Why do you think anti-incumbency is not catching up? What do you make of it? And the fact that the opposition in India simply can't seem to get its act in order?
I think there are a variety of things. First, remember, India is growing at roughly 6.5%. It's the fastest growing large economy in the world. In that circumstance, broadly speaking, there is a degree of contentment. There isn't that much pain, discontent, feeling I need to throw the bums out. I think that's one piece of it. Secondly, the BJP is a well-organized party that works very hard at elections. I think there's no question that it does that. I do think there are some issues with how free and fair the vote is, but I don't think that changes the reality that the BJP is a very well-oiled machine with regard to all of this stuff. And I think finally, Modi has been able to play this role of the outsider-insider in a very clever way, where, if you think about it, all politics over the last 10 years have been a revolt against the elites, the urban elites, the secular elites, the cosmopolitan elites. If you think of Erdogan in Turkey, Modi in India, Trump in the US, all these European populists, Modi somehow has been able, and in a way Trump is like this, to be prime minister and yet to be the symbol of the outside man, of the chaiwala. That's a very unusual skill. So I think a lot of it is because of that. And finally, I think something Ruchir Sharma said on your Walk the Talk, the ability to deliver patronage very quickly and efficiently is surely an unintended aspect of Aadhaar. But it is true that if you look at the Bihar elections, I can't remember the number, but there was a huge amount of money pumped into as patronage. And, the people do react to that. Economic incentives matter.
No, but let's just zoom out. When you look at other leaders who've been, say, 2.5 years in power, 2.5 terms in power, what would you compare the Modi rule with? Because as a student of world history, what does, say, 11 years of Modi compare with in a global context?
So most of the time when you look at leaders, after about 10 years, they start to lose it. They lose it both, it becomes a closed court, they become very arrogant, they become unresponsive. Think of Margaret Thatcher, Helmut Kohl, and it leads to their downfall. In Modi's case, you don't see that. He's going strong. Part of it is a weak opposition. Part of it is he's very disciplined. This is his life, this is what he does. And I think part of it is that he has figured out a way to manage the complexity of Indian politics, alliance politics, actually even better, I would say, than he did right at the start of his term, if you think about lower castes, for example. But, one has to say, part of it is he's more disciplined. He's disciplined. He does not seem to be fatiguing when he gets a setback as the Lok Sabha elections. He learns from it. So there's a degree of kind of vitality that remains. But I suspect that the issue is a weak opposition. Look, with all this, as you know, the BJP gets, 35-36% of the vote. The Congress gets 25% of the vote. You could imagine if you could find a charismatic leader or a coalition.
The Congress is down to 19-20, but sure, the allies together.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the alliance.
UPA, yeah,
if you look at the UPA, which is a pretty tight alliance, I think they would stay together. Maybe it would. You could imagine it changing, but I do think, it's why I've said that Modi is probably the most consequential prime minister since Nehru. Certainly, there are only 3 consequential prime ministers, I think, in Indian history: Nehru, Indira Gandhi, and Modi, who have had kind of seismic effect. And he's reshaped politics. He's reshaped the nature of the kind of master narrative of Indian history, which was a Nehruvian narrative, and he's changed that. Maybe that gives him an extra, a dose.
Modi's big hope is to fundamentally recast Indian politics from a Nehruvian mold to a new BJP, Modi, centre-right kind of mold. It's impossible to say for sure, but if you zoom out and project into the future, do you think he would have been able to do that?
I think he, look, I wonder about this because the India I grew up in was much more, it's an interesting thing. The India I grew up in was much more socialist and regulated and poor, but it was also at the same time much more pluralistic and diverse and secular and celebrated diversity with a certain kind of real passion and joy. And now what you see is an India that is much richer, much better economic management, booming economically, but where some of those other metrics have decayed, whether it's freedom of the press, whether it's independence of the judiciary, whether it's, a secular outlook. My own sense has always been that India is inherently a very diverse, pluralistic country. There's so many differences. It's a civilization that is, pretending in a sense to be one single country because it has so many linguistic, regional, religious, ethnic, caste differences. And I also think that my understanding of Hinduism is that it is a very tolerant religion. It is the most tolerant religion I can think of. I mean, there's no other religion I can think of where you can be a vegetarian and say that is a core part of my belief, and be a non-vegetarian and believe the same thing. You can believe in one God, you can believe in 100. You can, the ability to coexist and live and let live it seems to me at the essence of Hinduism. So my own feeling is, at the end of the day, that celebration of diversity and pluralism will resurface. Politics goes in waves, and I think that we are clearly in the wave you're describing, one defined by a certain kind of Hindu nationalism. But I'm not convinced that that's forever. One thing I've learned the older I get, nothing is forever. Things change.
And that's why we need to keep walking the talk. Thank you very much, Fareed Zakaria, for this masterclass in geopolitics. It's been an absolutely fascinating weekend. Wish you all the very best. Have a safe trip back.
Thank you, Ram.
Thank you.
It is tempting to take former Maharashtra Chief Minister and Congress elder Prithviraj Chavan's remarks on Operation Sindoor and do a dull mechanical fact check to rebut his claim that India was defeated on day one, that multiple Indian aircraft were shot down, that the Air Force was grounded, that the army did nothing and might as well be given other work. But you and I both know that is completely pointless. Other than Pakistani propaganda emerging from the rubble of Operation Sindoor, everybody knows what actually happened during India's offensive action in May this year. This isn't about the facts. This is about the man. Prithviraj Chavan is not a motor mouth. He is not a headline chaser. He is regarded as a thoughtful, cultured stalwart of the Congress party, a former Chief Minister of India's richest state, a long-serving public representative admired across party lines for being sober, very measured, and deliberately unprovocative. And yet, here he is making claims so farcically provocative and incendiary that they feel almost designed to provoke outrage, something that Prithviraj Chavan never does. The kind of outrage that cartoon anchors on other channels thrive on. They must be jumping up and down like jokers, shouting, "How dare you?" like Greta Thunberg, but not me. So what explains this? Have years out of power created a new malaise in the Congress neural network? Are weapons of mass distraction now the only way to generate traction when the Congress party cannot find resonance on anything, including vote chori? Or has the whispered Congress dynamic taken hold that the only way to stay relevant and in the graces of the Gandhis is to make startlingly hostile claims, even if they scrape the bottom of the barrel, or in this case, even if they're completely out of character? I have interviewed Mr. Chavan before. This does not fit. This is not him. Something has gone very, very wrong, and I want to ask what. He says he will not apologize, and I do not think he needs to. He says he is questioning the government, not the forces. Fair enough, and I believe him. The Congress has predictably distanced itself, its standard operating procedure whenever one of its own creates discomfort. As someone who covered Operation Sindoor from the front lines, I believe hard questions must be asked. I've asked them on this show, as you well know. But those questions are for the government, not the military. Needless to say, every one of the claims that Prithviraj Chavan has made in this attack are entirely false, but that doesn't even need to be said. What Prithviraj Chavan intended with his totally out of character offensive remains a mystery to me. He has won no friends.